Now, Washington Mornings on the Mall.
105.9 FM.
At AM 630.
WMAL.
7:07 on WMAL, Washington, D.C., home of the National League Eastern champions, the Washington Nationals.
How about that?
Clinched last night,
Awesome.
even though they lost. But they won the NL East and still have a chance for home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Very exciting time here in Washington.
Exciting.
As we get ready for playoffs and baseball and a big election coming up.
Oh, yeah. I heard that.
About a month, a little bit over a month from now. Oh, by the way, we're taking the show on the road. We're taking the show to you, meeting and talking to you in person. We're going to be in Virginia every Friday in the month of October.
Yeah, because that's the battleground state.
The battleground state, the Mornings on the Mall Swing State Roadshow.
Or, as I like to call it, Bacon with Brian.
Bacon with Brian. Friday morning, Metro 29 Diners will be in Arlington on Friday morning. Metro 29 Diners on Lee Highway in Arlington. The doors open at 6 o'clock in the morning. We'll be broadcasting live.
We'll be there live and in person, and we want to shake your hand.
We do, and so stop by if you can. Tom Bevan joins us now. He's the co-founder and executive editor of Real Clear Politics and co-author of Election 2012, A Time for Choosing. So there's been a lot of talk, Tom, about these polls that are out there. Are they oversampling Democrats? Do you want to weigh in on this great debate that we're having right now?
Not really.
Okay.
Well, it is a great weight debate, yeah.
Listen, we've been doing this for 12 years, okay? And if you remember 4 years ago, there was a lot of Democrats were sort of working the refs, if you will, talking about the fact that, you know, they were actually trying to get Gallup to go with, they were actually telling everybody that the likely voter screen, the likely voter model that all the pollsters have used for years and years and years no longer applied because Obama was bringing in all these new voters, these people who hadn't voted before, therefore they weren't getting through these screens, and that his turnout was going to be, therefore it was undersampling his voters, and his number was going to be, much greater, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it was all bunk. I mean, the Real Clear Politics average in the end was 7 points, and the race was 7 points. So, we've been watching these polls closely for a long, long time. There have been discussions about, cell phone users, et cetera, et cetera. And in the end, I think that because we have so many different polling operations, we do end up with a lot of data. I tend to believe that the pollsters are right, and that I don't think that. Now, again, we're talking about, everyone needs to remember that when these polls are simply giving us a snapshot in time, and that snapshot can change.
Right.
And I probably expect it to change as we move closer to the election.
Well, it sort of tightened up in the last day or so. I mean, there was a lot of divergence in the poll, let's say, last week. But I'm looking now, CNN, Obama +3, ABC, Obama +2, Political Battleground, Obama +2, Gallup, which looks at registered voters, not likely voters, Obama +4, Rasmussen, Obama +3. I mean, that's pretty tight.
Well, again, I agree, and I think this cry that you've seen from conservatives who weren't happy with the way the polls were moving, I think that's exactly what it was. It was just a reaction to the fact that I think Obama had moved ahead and Romney had slipped behind in some of these swing states. That isn't to say that he isn't going to recover that ground, but this is what happens. I mean, if you're not, and again, I think we heard some of this on the Sunday shows. If you're arguing that the polls are wrong, that's not a good position to be in. That means you're losing.
Yeah.
And so I just don't think it's necessarily a smart thing. Again, in the 12 years that we've been doing this, there's only been one time where the polls have had it totally wrong. And that was in New Hampshire in 2008, where you remember Obama won Iowa, headed off to New Hampshire. He was up 7 or 8 points in every single poll that was listed there.
Right.
And in the last 48 hours, we had, Hillary Clinton cried, and we had a guy stand up at a rally and said, with a sign that said, "Iron my shirt." And women came out in droves, and she ended up winning that race by 3 points. And the reason the pollsters got it wrong is because they didn't go in they weren't in the field the last 24 hours because they thought the race was over, so they didn't catch that last-minute swing. So I just don't expect it. I don't expect us to see the polls be every single poll totally and utterly wrong.
All right. What about the tone? Mitt Romney's tone. A lot of conservatives are upset because they don't think he's going after the president hard enough. They want him to be more aggressive. We actually interviewed him last week, and it seems to me that the strategy from the Romney campaign is still to win over the moderates and win over the independents, and he's not going to say anything that's really going to fire up the base, per se. Now we're hearing, apparently this morning, he told the Denver Post that the president's policy with the illegal immigrants, the Backdoor Dream Act, said that that will stay for 2 years if he winds up being the president.
Yeah, look, this is a conundrum for Romney. I mean, obviously, he needs this is both a base election. You got to turn out your base if you want to have a chance to win, but it also undecideds, of which there are just a few left, probably 4 or 5% at most, and in a lot of these swing states, we got 7 or 8 swing states that we're looking at. It's a universe of in each state maybe 100,000, 150,000 voters, probably 1 million voters total that both campaigns are trying to reach, and Romney has to win those folks too if he wants to win. So he does have a conundrum. I think he does need to be aggressive against President Obama and really sort of take it to him when he has the opportunity to stand there on stage with him without sort of any media filter and try and get into his face, if you will, and make points about Barack Obama's record. That being said, he can't go too far. He doesn't want to come off as mean-spirited. He doesn't want to come off because, again, most voters still like Romney. So he has to do it in a way that doesn't turn off those independent voters. And a lot of those independent voters are going to agree with Romney when he castigates Barack Obama for his record on the economy over the last 4 years. So it's going to be interesting to see how he plays this out and whether he can toe that line without crossing it.
In just a moment, we're going to open the phone lines and talk to our listeners, and we're going to ask them to tell us what they want to hear out of these debates. 1-888-630-9625, by the way. But here's the thing that I want to ask you. How important are these debates? Because there are so many people out there that are said to be locked in. But I've seen some statistics that indicate that maybe 15% might change their mind. What's your sense of it?
My sense is that, look, I mean, there's been a lot of discussion about this too. Historically, debates don't very rarely sort of change the overall trajectory of this race. So I don't suspect that that's going to happen unless we see something catastrophic, which rarely happens. That being said, I mean, I do think the debates give candidates an opportunity. Like Romney, for example, I mean, he's been getting beaten up in the media for 3 weeks, basically. It's still a close race. I mean, he has opportunity to sort of, get back on offense as opposed to playing defense. And so in that sense, I think it is important for him. And could change not the trajectory of the race, but a little bit of the momentum and sort of, again, I disagree with the narrative for the reasons you just mentioned, Brian. I mean, the narrative that somehow this race is over and Romney needs a game changer, he needs a Hail Mary, he's got to have a knockout, all that stuff. I mean, I think that's just bunk. It is a close race. It is a 2 or 3 point race nationally. It is a 2 or 3 point race in a lot of these swing states. So I think Romney has to acquit himself well, there's no question. And I think if he can get himself back on offense, then things are going to get very, very interesting moving forward.
What do you read into the USA Today poll that says that there is greater enthusiasm among the GOP voters than there is among the Democratic voters?
Well, I think that's something that we've seen for a long time. I mean, Republicans are excited to go out and vote. I mean, this is the other conundrum for Romney is that and this is where I think he has to be careful, is because he still hasn't generated. Most of the Republican voters are excited about going out not to vote for Romney, but to vote against Obama. I mean, they really see a second Obama term as sort of an existential threat to the country in terms of what would happen with debt, deficit, taxes, etc. So Romney did generate some enthusiasm for his ticket with the pick of Paul Ryan, but that has sort of ebbed now, and I think he needs to re-energize Republicans. Present them with, a vision that will help get them and motivate them to the polls, because that's one of his advantages. He's got the more motivated base, and he's going to need them to turn out on Election Day.
All right, Tom. Great to have you on the show as always. We appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Tom Bevan with Real Clear.